Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are going to be discussing on what actually happened at F1 Esports this past weekend, or should I say F1 sim racing. As many of you are aware, or perhaps maybe completely unaware due to the lack of announcements, F1 Esports held their first event in Sweden at the DreamHack Expedition this past weekend. The event was meant to have both Bahrain and Silverstone, both each having a full qualifying followed by a 50% race, but due to some many dramas, we only managed to actually get the Bahrain qualifying and race. Through speaking to multiple contacts at the event, it appeared to be that the main issue was the prize pool amount of $750,000. This prize pool amount hasn't increased from the previous year, but just to give you a little bit of perspective, F1 in 2022 made $2.7 billion. If you rounded this down to $2 billion, for argument's sake, for 2023, then $750,000 is 0.0375% of how much F1 make. So not even 0.1%, and apparently they were really complaining about this. On average, the F1 YouTube account hits over 100 million views per month and can return up to £300,000 a month. Of course, there are expenses at play, but I don't think they particularly are lacking or short of money. Not to mention last year, F1 Esports was actually their second biggest venture outside of Drive to Survive. And this is why my passion has kind of dipped a little bit for F1 Esports and also F1 in general the past couple of years. Unfortunately, we're living in a day and age now where it's really quantity over quality, and it's just about how much your pockets can be filled by doing the least amount possible. But with the platform they have, with having how many millions of followers, hundreds of million views a month, surely they could get a pretty decent return of this investment of £750,000 if they put it up to good quality. However, it appears to be that F1 had an issue with this, and because if we look at the prize pool and how the winnings are distributed, the winners only receive $18,000. So the F1 Esports champion, $18,000, whereas the constructors receive $120,000. Of course, most of the esports teams will have a contract with the drivers, so if someone wins the championship, they will be getting a pretty big chunk of that. But I would have expected the drivers to perhaps be rewarded just that little bit more, especially if their teammate doesn't score any points or they don't have that contract in place. Then, no, really, they're sacrificing their real life opportunities for this. This is their livelihood. And I know for a fact that many of the drivers and many of the F1 esports teams solely rely on this prize money in order to fuel their ventures. So with their salaries, their livelihood, their expenses, they do not receive any support from the official F1 team or F1 themselves. So I can understand if they weren't happy of how this was distributed and the actual just prize pool amount themselves, then I can imagine there might be a few areas of issue there. But it did appear that they did come to somewhat of an agreement, because the £750,000. But throughout that weekend, it appears that F1 and the F1 teams did come to somewhat of an agreement. Therefore, racing did commence, but we only had Bahrain, so we weren't able to fit in the Silverstone, but we had the qualifying at Bahrain, followed by the race. But the thing that I just still cannot understand to this day, and what is most bizarre about this whole weekend, is that there has just been absolutely no announcement, no communication, no social media posts from F1, from EA, from Codemasters, the developer of the game, ESL, the production, about the series whatsoever. And I just don't get it. I really, really do not get it. If the issue is about a return of investment on the prize pool, then how can they expect to have a return of investment if they are not doing any marketing, doing any advertising, doing any hype whatsoever? They are doing basically the complete bare minimum other than just holding an event. I just don't understand. There's been 11 months since the last season. There's been no communication. There's been no marketing of when the event was going to take place, no schedule, no timetable, nothing whatsoever. So whilst being completely left in the dark, all of a sudden on Saturday, we were presented with a live stream via the official F1 channel on Twitch, which streamed without any notification, no announcement, no tweet from the official F1 account, nothing from Codemasters, the developer, to say that qualifying was live for F1 Esports, and it wasn't even live on YouTube, which does suggest that there were some issues with the live streaming rates, because I did hear there were other issues as well apart from the prize pool. So, like I said, with the rights to who was actually going to be live streaming it, also with the equal cars, because if you didn't notice, they were running the F1 World cars with liveries on top. So that's why the onboards did look a little bit different. So overall, it just felt incredibly last minute. And a source at the event told me that the commentators and drivers were only told 10 minutes before that they would actually, in fact, be going live with the qualifying and the race at Bahrain. However, the qualifying and the racing itself was good to watch and somewhat made up for it since we did get some action. But even this, the production did not seem to flow, often with the broadcast cameras actually switching view in very crucial moments, such as when someone was completing a qualifying lap, overtakes, and even the start of the race. If you watch it back on the live stream,
He starts off trying to get his foot in the door.
Here we go then, the 5 red lights. The F1 Sim Racing World Championship is underway. Ronhar on pole position ahead of Danny Beresne, going defensive already. Is Ronhar down towards turn 1 as the cars feed through? Is there any contact? Lucas Blakely in the mix there as well. There's a few cars in the background getting mixed up there, but
they weren't even actually showing it in full view. They were actually more focused on the venue, more focused on the commentators than they were on the gameplay. So overall, it just felt very rushed, very unorganized. It didn't seem particularly high quality. Even as far as to say as the graphics compared to previous seasons, it just seemed very, very mediocre and not quite at the same level as we've seen in previous seasons. But I will say, however, the commentary for the most part was pretty good. But even in that, there were some moments where it was quite clear that the commentators weren't really up to scratch in terms of the game knowledge, which kind of really took away from the experience a little bit. One thing to mention as well is that there was actually an F1 Esports account created on Instagram the day this event happened. And for me, I don't know if this is even official, because F1 does not follow this account. Most of the official F1 teams don't follow this account. But all the posts were made on the day of the event in the very, very last moment. And it kind of really strikes me as just someone random just making these posts, pretty much just producing memes. And again, just kind of screams that this was not organized, this was not planned, and just doesn't come across as executed very well. But overall, it was good that we got some racing. That is the bare minimum. But I do find that the event was just a complete disaster for F1 and F1 Esports. Since then, there's been absolutely no statement, no explanation, no communication into what happened. There's been no details of when the next event is. Even during the live stream, they didn't say when event 2 is going to be, the reasons for delay. Between qualifying and between the race, they didn't really update the standings. It just felt like they weren't prepared for it whatsoever. And everyone is still completely left in the dark, which I think that is my biggest gripe and biggest issue over this whole event, is just the disrespect to the community, the fans. The community is absolutely thriving. We see it in league racing such as PSGL, WOR. They have thousands and thousands of viewers. I'm almost pretty sure to say that why not give them a title sponsor? I feel like they would probably do a better job in terms of promoting the scene of F1 Esports or F1 Sim Racing, if that's what you want to call it now. I just felt like there is absolutely no respect on the community. And for people who are looking to get into F1 Esports, I would imagine this would be very, very discouraging. If they are arguing about the prize pool, the distribution of this prize pool, there is absolutely no advertisement, no tweets, no social media posts. I just cannot explain it. With an account and following that F1 does, and F1 Esports is quite easily the most watched racing esports there is, I just can't understand why they're not capitalizing on it. And I think what it ultimately boils down to is just the people in charge. I feel most of these people are really thinking about their own agenda. They're really thinking about their own pockets, their own profits. They're not thinking about the community. They're not thinking about trying to maximize the viewership. It's not being exploited in a way anywhere close near to what its potential can be. And I just feel for an organisation of this size, it is just completely unacceptable, and there really is no excuse. There is so much potential, but it just continues to be managed in absolutely the worst way possible, and I just cannot understand why. So if you could let me know what you think, why this has happened, and what impact this actually has on the scene, then please let me know down below. But overall, I want to say congratulations to Thomas Ronhaar. At least we had it on a LAN as well. But his performance was nothing short of exceptional. And I think he proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. I definitely had many doubts on his performances, especially online in F1 22, which I think were quite valid. Considering he was running the very low downforce, we know how easy it was to cheat on F1 22. Obviously, playing on your own PC at home, sometimes the gap he had to the field whilst being able to have the best traction, the best speed in the low speed corners, whilst being fastest on the straights, was something we didn't really see from anyone else. So I feel that was pretty valid to be criticised in F1 22. But for F1 23 and his performance here, although not impossible, I do feel it's very unlikely. The risk is just simply too high. And I think he has just proved that he is definitely the best driver in F1 23 right now. So congratulations to him. I really hope we actually get some news on when future events are coming up, because again, I just feel the respect to the community is just simply not there between F1 and Codemasters right now. And I think that has been the biggest issue for a long time, the communication and the respect. Please let me know what your thoughts are this weekend, and I'll be catching you very soon. Peace.